Thank you to our sponsors, K. Flynn Insurance, elect Bruce Becker for the Lincoln County Fire Board, and the Crafty Midwestern Mommy for their continued support of the Lincoln County Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the Lincoln County Podcast. Got a special guest today. Super excited to dive into this, so I'm going to turn it over to him to introduce himself, and we will get rocking.
Hey, I'm Michael Jacobs. I currently serve as the Associate Circuit Judge in Lincoln County.
That's awesome. So what all, as someone that hasn't spent a lot of time around the courts, what all does that entail?
That entails getting elected.
Yeah.
And, people put their faith in you, and you spend 4 years working the job.
Working that. So what type of cases, like, is it generic, like general anything that comes through the courts, or do you have, like, is it specific?
Lincoln County has three divisions.
Okay.
I'm Division 3.
Okay.
So currently I'm assigned to, I handle traffic, I handle felonies just for the first part, and then they transfer up to Judge Beck up in Division 1.
Okay.
I handle orders of protection, unless we kind of have what's being called on call. And so sometimes it'll be me, sometimes that'll be somebody else making those decisions. But once it gets to the courtroom, I generally am the one doing those. I handle civil cases, basically anything in dispute up to about $25,000.
Okay.
If it's more than that, it goes up to circuit court.
Okay.
So
awesome. So kind of a mixture.
A mixture
would be safe to say. You're not hearing the same things. I kind of figured out with it being Lincoln County, it probably was more of a mixture of stuff with the different setups.
Yes. But I don't do wills and things like that. That's a different judge.
Oh, okay. So I mean, so there's 3 districts though? Mm-hmm. That's how it works? Okay. That's really cool. What made you, I met you before that it all happened. What made you want to do that?
I never did want to do that, actually.
Yeah.
All through college, all through my career, people would always say, hey, you'd make a great judge. And I'd always say, oh, that's fun to hear. I have no interest in that. I always liked being handed a file and told, this is your good guy, this is your bad guy. And I always viewed it, I was a defense attorney, criminal defense attorney for a while. I was a prosecutor for a little while. I always kind of viewed it like I'm this person's microphone. It's not my job to, people say, well, how do you take a guilty person that you know is guilty?
It's not your job to judge them.
Yeah, and it's my job is just to tell their story.
Yeah.
And
that's a great way to look at it.
If the jury believes it, they're the only ones, the jury or the judge, they're the only ones who've heard this unbiased.
Yeah.
I'm getting it, I'm biased.
Yeah.
Because one side or the other. And so I always just kind of enjoyed that. It was kind of a challenge.
Yeah. No.
Here's your good guy, here's your bad guy. Go. It's almost like, now it's like being a parent. When you're a kid, you just say, I want a cookie. You know what you want, you know what you don't want.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're the parent and kid comes in and says, can I have a cookie? And you're like, go ask, oh, it's me. Like, I'm the one. Now I have to decide. That's a lot of
pressure.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so it just never was something that interested me.
See, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an attorney.
Okay.
And my grades sucked. And my parents knew that there was no way I wanted to go to school for that. I just thought it was awesome. I loved movies with attorneys. I love TV shows with attorneys. I love legal thrillers. Okay. I get that that's different. It's just like reading a detective novel.
Absolutely.
You got to start somewhere first. I get it that it's not all real life. Like, I get that, but I just have always thought it was really interesting. And the characters and getting up in front, talking to the juries and stuff, I've always thought that was amazing. But it always seemed like, from a lot of the books, a lot of the TV shows, the goal of a lot of attorneys was to either have a practice with partners underneath them or a judge. But it does seem like you said you were prosecutor and defense. Like, seems like people do both too sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you enjoy more? Or what were really, I guess, what would the differences be for you?
I think the difference was when I was a prosecutor, people viewed me as a good guy.
Yeah, I get That's how the books are too. It's always, if it's attorneys, the scum sucker.
Yeah. And looking at the cases by and large, it makes sense if people felt that way.
Yeah.
But you really would come across those cases where you'd really dig into it, and a lot of times you take it to the prosecutor and they'd say, "Oh yeah, we charged the wrong person."
For sure.
And those were amazing moments. Those, I guess, in both I found. So my dad was a dentist.
Okay.
And I really struggled becoming a lawyer because I saw the pain that he was able to take away from people.
Yeah.
You know, people come in, you know, doc, my tooth hurts.
And
I admired that. And becoming a lawyer, I thought, I'm not doing that. And I feel like I should do that. I feel like my purpose in life, that should be part of that. And what I learned was that people who are involved in a court case, they are in pain.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of stress that goes into that, the amount of just mental anguish.
Yeah.
And from both sides, that's the part I liked the most, was being able to say, this person is no longer in pain. And sometimes no longer in pain meant that guy's going to prison.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just like sometimes you go to the dentist and it means you don't have teeth anymore, you know, because they had to pull them all.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't always a rainbow happy ending, but I found that I was able to do that, and that made me feel good. And part of the reason I hesitated about being a judge was kind of that. I didn't see where that
you felt like it was going to take that away.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been really surprised and delighted that it has not. I've really enjoyed my time doing it. And so all my fears of, well, I don't want to do it because of this, have really kind of fallen apart, much to my joy.
Wow.
I am Julie Forster with Crafty Midwestern Mommy, your local boutique embroidery and fabric store. I sell fabric as well as sewing notions and also teach classes. And then we also, on the other side of our business, do machine embroidery, custom apparel for local businesses, and just personalized gifts. Again, the store's name is Crafty Midwestern Mommy, and that's how you can find us on all social media platforms as well as our website.
When did you realize that was the part of it you liked? Was that being able to help people? Was that something you realized, like you said, your dad was a dentist, he would take pain away, like you admired that? When was it that you realized with law that you could help people in that aspect, or that was what was going to make you feel good?
Yeah. You know, strange enough, even before I passed the bar or took the bar, after you're halfway done with law school, you can basically be kind of like a junior attorney. Like you can practice underneath another attorney.
Okay.
And I got to go help out on uncontested divorces at Legal Aid. And I volunteered because I figured any practical experience is
you're
good.
getting experience for sure.
I knew I wasn't going to go into divorces, but I thought I'd try it out. And just the people would come in and say, look, my husband's in prison and is serving a life sentence, or my husband has run away with another woman and he's not coming back to Missouri to do this divorce. I need help. And just watching, I filled out forms with them. It was a one-day thing, but watching the people leave and just seeing that difference in the strain they were under.
You can physically see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, you can physically see it lift. That's great. Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, it really is.
See, that's really cool. That's one thing that I have realized recently. So I always had martial arts. I always did it. And I thought I just liked to kick and punch. And I was good at it. I was good with kids. I had a lot of patience. But I never realized until COVID and we shut the school down for a little bit how much the school helped my mental health.
Oh.
And then because I was on week 2 at the house of doing it over a screen, and I went upstairs, sat down with Casey. I was like, I got to figure something out, because they weren't really pushing it in Lincoln County anyways. Right. I was like, let's try this. So what I did is I would stream the classes, and if the people that wanted to come in could come in, the ones that wanted to stream it could stream it. And I was like, first night I got home, I'm like, okay, I feel better. So then I started really analyzing things with building up the painting company. As you know, from around town, we do a lot of stuff in the community. That stuff made me feel good. So I was like, well, the bigger I can make the painting company and the more money I can make with it, the more people I can help. Well, then I realized it was a double-edged sword. I enjoyed helping everyone, but then I hated the managing of the painting company and dealing with the customers. And before coming here today, showed up at a bid. The guy didn't answer his door. Called the office, like, hey, when someone come up? I beat on the door and I rang the doorbell and I left. I hung out, but that stuff gets frustrating because then they're frustrated. I understand their frustration, but I also drove over there and no one answered the door. That side of it began to outweigh the good I could do.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, let's take a look at how I can have that feeling and enjoy it. So that's why I started building out my coaching thing that I'm doing now.
Okay.
Because I went and sat down with a couple business owners and we had lunch and we talked about things that we could do, and they were like-minded, like the gentleman you met out there. I'm coming on his podcast soon. We're doing some events together. And I left there going, wow, I really feel good.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is what I need, because I noticed I was getting grumpy at the school and grumpy everywhere else, and it was because of running the paint company. I would literally go out of town to a tournament, be on my way home from the tournament, Casey be like, all right, where do you want everybody to go tomorrow? And I'd literally just feel this weight, and I was like, oh, I hate that. That's what my problem is. So, but I have clients and employees. It's not like you just shut the doors. I'm not selfish.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. So restructuring stuff. But that's awesome that I always felt myself blessed because I knew I wanted to do martial arts, and I knew it made me happy.
Right.
But knowing that helping people made you feel good from an early part really has obviously helped you with the direction and what you want to do and how involved you are in the community in Troy.
Yeah.
That is really, really cool, because that's something that I've, ever since kind of figuring some of this out, I've made it a point with my black belts and students at school to be like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be like, well, let me tell you from watching people, here's what I think you're really good at.
Interesting.
What do you think about that? Or maybe, have you ever thought of this? And there's been a few of them that are like, I kind of, yeah. And I was like, why don't you check that out? See how, kind of helping them go that direction, because my dad always told me to be self-employed, but he did it because he hated his job at General Motors.
Okay.
It wasn't because like, hey, I think you'd be really, not that he didn't think I'd be good at it, but it wasn't from that place. So that is really, really cool that you were able to find that and figure that out. When you went into practicing law, how did you pick like what, and this is something I didn't even think about recently, because John Grisham, any legal thrillers, like for me, it's all, I think the stuff with money, as I became more successful and was around more people that made money and understood it, like the financial crimes and all that stuff, I find it just so interesting, the way these guys can do stuff. And with the attorneys, I just thought it was so neat, but there are so many different areas of law.
There are.
How did you pick?
So kind of a two-part thing, and jumping off what you said, talking about your father saying to work for himself. My grandfather was a chemical engineer, but on the side, he kind of entrepreneurial, built things and sold them. My father ran his own shop as a dentist, and watching them, I looked and said, yeah, I should not work for myself. Like, in part because
of how hard it is.
I'm not good at, well, I've learned that as well. I'm not good at valuing my own time. So if I say that's going to cost $500 and someone says $500, I say, I meant $50. Sorry, I threw an extra, I didn't mean to. And I said, I better work for.
Guilty.
Yeah. And when I went to law school, when you go to law school, the more people they can get to go to work at large firms, the better it looks. And so they're always kind of, hey, inviting large firms to come talk to you and doing all this stuff. And I looked at it and kind of realized that was a young man's game. And I was a little older. And so I'd had my first kid in law school, and we had our second kid while I was in law school. And I used to I was always the first one at the school. What I used to do was I went and bought an alarm clock that was more expensive than I could replace. And then at night, when I left the school, I would set the alarm clock for early in the morning and hide it in the library. And I knew I had to be back to turn off that alarm clock, or a janitor would find it and throw it away.
Oh, you had it at the school?
Yeah, so it would force me to get out of bed and rush out the door, because I had to get down to school and turn off that alarm clock before it went off.
Wow, talk about discipline to reset that damn thing every night. That's awesome.
Well,
that's really cool.
Because I had high discipline at that point. When I woke up at 3 in the morning, I had low discipline, so I had to trick.
We all have high hopes that that alarm goes off at like 4 a.m. and you're like, 4:30's not that bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a great way.
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
So I'd rush down there, do my reading, and then at 5 o'clock, last class, I'd leave. That's when everybody else started, studying.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to tuck my kids in at night.
Yep.
And as I looked at the large firm stuff, I realized I'm going to beat myself up to get these large firm jobs and wind up winning a prize I don't want.
No, and they're going to run you into the ground.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. Which is fine if you're 22 years old. Yeah. What a great way to make it.
If you don't have a family, why not? Yeah,
but
for sure.
So I knew government jobs you were overworked, but if you went home at 5 o'clock, They weren't going to fire you for it. I also, because I was a little older, I needed to catch up on experience real fast. And so as I asked around, everybody said, public defender's office, they're too overworked to micromanage you. They're going to kick you in the deep end of the pool. It's going to be a terrible 2 years, but you're going to come out knowing that area of law.
It's a great way to do it.
And as I would read cases, every class I had was fascinating. How property law, went from this to this and over the course of time. And it would be so fascinating. And then I'd read the cases and party the first part, party the second part. And I'd think, if party the first part and party the second part don't get in a fight by the end of this, it's going to be a real boring read. And it was. Yeah. But the criminal cases were really interesting. Yeah. And you could go to somebody afterwards and say, I read this case. This crazy thing happened. Yeah. And so I just found myself that in the history of law, everything was interesting, but in the practice, it was really the criminal law. That's where the interesting stories came out of.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I like an interesting story.
See, and I never thought about that. A friend of mine is an attorney, but it's not criminal. So my one instructor, Kendall, and I've mentioned her to you before. She actually 2 weeks ago was supposed to go shadow Judge Richardson.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
Well, she ended up, hey, like we do it, we go big or go home. She ended up with the flu and strep throat that week and was devastated because she missed speaking at the chamber. She missed going to shadow. She missed a couple things. She was just devastated. But she loves to argue because she argues me to death. Every time we get into these big arguments, but she doesn't just argue from emotion. She does her research because she'll pause. So we got in an argument over school. We had a photo shoot.
Okay.
And I was like, when are you coming up here to get your medals? It was from Worlds. You didn't tell us about it. I'm like, I did too. I posted it in the group chat. She's like, you did not. I'm home. And so we started going back and forth. And I was like, whatever, we'll just do it again some other time. And I just put my phone down. Stacy's like, you going to let her win? I'm like, she's already scoured that group chat. I must have forgotten to put it in there. Everyone else knew. We swore I put it somewhere, but it was not in a group chat, but I didn't. And so when I had Kendall on the podcast, I'm like, you search that group chat before you message you back. She goes, I searched every word of it. I was like, so she's not arguing just to argue. She checked her facts and then went at me. So I was like, nope, you win, whatever. And they're like, what? I was like, I'm not going to search the group chat. I already know she did. And she would not come back at me if she hadn't searched it. So I'm always teasing her. She spoke at Lions Club in Troy. And they're like, what do you think you want to do? And I was like, attorney. And she's like, somebody wants me to go into law. And they were all giggling, getting a kick out of it. I'm like, hey, just telling you, you'd be good at it. Well, we finally figured out she was thinking of a lawyer as only criminal. Okay. And we're like, oh, no. There's tons of stuff. It might not be as interesting, but she loves business stuff.
Okay.
So she's like, I may find that. So she's kind of looking into that. And that's what's really cool is I never even thought about that because in my own mind, it was criminal.
Yeah.
Criminal or divorce or custody, but I guess that's because those are the only three things I've ever dealt with, which everything's going to have its own stories.
Sure.
But there are so many different ones. So that's neat to start at the public defenders.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, what a way, everything you read, everything you watch, everything, those guys are swamped.
Right.
And they're always getting cases thrown to them that nobody wants, nobody can help them. They don't have, they're probably not even the best cases, but what a way to learn.
Yeah.
Sink or swim. And I've never met anyone successful that did not normally have some type of a backstory like that. Well, it was learn or, or drowned.
Yeah.
Sink or swim, just like that. So that's really a cool way to start. Now, did you go from that into the prosecuting? Like, were you a prosecutor? Or
yes.
Okay. So I don't know how all the levels work.
Right. So my plan had been 2 years at the public defender's office, and then I'm out of there. And it wound up being, I had such a great boss, such a great office. I was learning so much that I stuck around for 3 years, went to a prosecutor's office. I was there. I was an assistant prosecutor because there's one elected prosecutor, and then they hire assistants.
Okay, so that's how that works.
Yeah.
Okay, I always wondered that.
Yeah. And again, good experience. Got to work with a whole different. It's funny because when you're on the public defender side, normally the police see you as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then moving to the prosecutor side and suddenly becoming the good guy.
That's funny.
It was interesting, and I've always been the person who, I I got along with both sides.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't, because I never took it personal. I recognized it at the end of the day when the prosecutor said, this guy needs to go to prison. He wasn't talking about me.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't. And so I was able to maintain that professional, you know, realization we're all doing a job. And so I was friends with a lot of the police officers, and they would, you know, call me up and be friendly about things. And they're such a force. The police are such a force for the community.
Oh,
I mean, really, a police force's attitude will make or break a community.
For sure.
For everybody.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
And getting to see that, it was really neat to kind of be led into that. And having seen it from the outside and then the inside gave me a really unique perspective on it. And we were talking about Stu earlier.
Yeah.
That's partially why, you know, what he was doing I thought was so interesting.
Oh, for sure. Well, and there's so many great officers. There's so many great things about Lincoln County anyways. That's been the coolest thing about starting this podcast is meeting everybody and not just saying we're going to have business owners, not just saying we're going to have this, not just saying we're going to have that, but just having anybody. I've got such a plethora of people coming on.
Yeah.
But again, you know, that sets the tone of the community. I know so many of the sheriffs and so many of the police officers at different ones, and they are truly there to help the community. The people that don't think that, that's because they're making meth out behind their trailer. That's why they don't think that. That's why they're like, oh, they're just here to mess with you. Well, it's because you're making bad choices. The upstanding citizens or the ones that do want help are happy for them.
Right.
And that's I think, going to come with any community, but the fact that they do reach out, they do come through and say hi to the kids.
Yeah, agreed.
And I always have found that funny too. When anything legal is brought up, it's always, oh, this side of the aisle is bad or this side's good. And one of the things I've always admired with attorneys, and it may just be a TV attorney thing, but in the court situations I've been in over the years, your good ones are able to do what you just said. It's not personal.
Right.
You know, you get some of them that got a chip on their shoulder. They're this or they're that, and you know. But the ones that were good, it was always. I always thought it was so cool how their brain worked, how they would deliver, you know, look at things without letting emotions run amok in it.
Yeah.
It's black and white. Here's the law. Here's what's going on. Was this done? This done? I've always found that admirable because I'm very, you know, even if it's a bad review on one of my businesses, I'm very quick to get angry. And I'm working on it. It's a long process, but I've always found that really cool that with attorneys. And how much of that stuff do they take you guys through in law school? Like teaching you the successful ways to be an attorney, not just how to get your, you know, pass the bar. Right.
While I was there, 0%.
Really?
Yeah. Law school is entirely about how to know the law. For instance, one of my classes was taught by a guy who'd been a federal prosecutor.
Yeah.
So he only taught us federal law.
Yeah.
And none of us went into federal law. It didn't matter. But we learned from that how to go learn the law.
Yeah.
So in law school, you don't graduate with a specialty in criminal law or anything else. You just graduate with the knowledge of how to go learn whatever you need to learn.
Okay.
It's very much about that. So it's not they're shifting it now. But while I was there, none of it was based on practical experience. Yeah. And it was I think the profession suffered for it.
Well, I think all of them do. I think all professions do. So I did a speaking thing this weekend. I've been working with the coach for 4 months now. But the thing that blew me away is I thought when I hired him, he was going to teach me how to public speak.
Okay.
How to phrase words, how to draw emotions into it, how to structure a speech to deliver a message. What I didn't realize is he's worked with me on how to build my first event, how to reach out to clients to get speaking gigs, how to network at events. We had our speaking thing this weekend, and the first 5 hours of each day before we had our competition was the judges or himself or other people he brought in getting up and giving us advice on things. They brought in a book publisher that broke down how to market yourself through publishing a book. Wow. Like they're actually teaching you how to become a business when you're done with it.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was amazing because I didn't know I needed to know that part. Really and truthfully, I just wanted to, I know when I go see a public speaker, there's people that get up on stage and talk, and there's speakers that move the audience.
Right.
I wanted to be able to move the audience, and I wanted to be able to what kind of started was we go to a tournament. I'd get all this stuff worked up in my head. I'd be out in the car. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to get my team. Just get my team just motivated.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, let's do this. Like I would just bomb. I just would bomb it. I'd lock up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got to learn how to draw these thoughts out in the correct way because I thought I could do it by listening to good speakers. But what's been amazing is how much Jesse has taken us through all the steps to become a paid speaker. So you do 6 months with him. At the end of the 6 months, if you do everything how he sets it up, you'll be a paid speaker. You host events, so you're a keynote speaker. You compete, so now you're an award-winning speaker. But he also on the back end goes, how are you gonna get paid to speak? Well, I don't know. Well, here's what you need to do. Here's this. And he's even like sent me things. Hey man, I really like that. Why don't you say this? So I had always kind of wondered that because it seems like a lot of professions, they teach you how to do the job, but not how to succeed at the job. Almost like, so Dr. Penny was on, we discussed about how the Troy School District does a lot with the career building through Rankin and all those great programs. Yeah. But some schools just teach you how to do math, English, science, and then good luck.
Right.
So I always kind of wondered that with your fields like that are more professional, if they do kind of teach you, okay, here's what you got to do. Hey, you're an attorney now, but here's what actually goes into doing something.
Right. So in medical school, you do the college part, and then it's built in. You do your rotations and your clinicals and things like that. In law, that's your first job. That's the idea behind your first job. Is you've learned the stuff, you get your first job, and that's where you
pick it up.
What I find fascinating about what you're saying is you have found the part of the job that you love, and you're honing down into that. Because so often someone's leaving a job or someone's unhappy with a job. I'm going to leave this job, and you say, well, what do you like about the job? And that kind of catches them by surprise. Or you think about somebody, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be a plumber. How come? Because no one ever says, I like putting two pipes together.
That makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
And so to find the part of the job that interests you, it doesn't matter, because being a lawyer, you could be a lawyer in the courtroom, you could be a lawyer behind a desk, you could be a lawyer, there's so many places to be. Same with a painter. You can paint the arch, you can paint the underground, you can paint whatever. And to figure out what parts of the business you like, and then to kind of cut that out, isolate it, and delve into it. That's a fascinating thing you're doing.
A friend of mine and I had that conversation years ago about martial arts. He had built a big school, and we were talking about programs and sales and contracts and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I hate all that crap. I just want people to come into school and train. I want to keep the program simple so they can get in the door and I can make a living. I want to teach. And he was like, man, he loved that part of it, the sales part.
Interesting.
He had gotten really into that part, even though he was a great teacher, but he loved that. And then working with his like really high level students.
Yeah.
Because they traveled all over. He enjoyed that. But he had told me he loved the building the school part, which building up a new business is fun. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of work. I do like it. I love it when a friend of mine starts and I love to help them. But I realized I can't just keep rebuilding businesses.
Yeah.
So that was my thing is I had, actually when I started here, a friend of Joey's is a painter. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I want to build like a painting coaching business. He goes, oh, Blaine, why don't we connect you guys? So me and Blaine went to lunch, and I left there after talking with him and giving him some advice on things that I had done wrong. I felt really good. And I said, this is what I was missing. So I've told my wife for years, you're on the job sites, you're with your employees, you're with cranky homeowners sometimes. It's very rare I get to have conversations with people that are like an uplifting conversation, a positive conversation, or, not just about the weather, the Chiefs, or whatnot. And I said, I just really want that. Like when I do find it, it's hard to pull us apart because it's enjoyable. And then when I started here, I worked with Blaine, and then Joey suggested the podcast idea, and I've just fallen in love with it. So now my next thing is delivering that message and getting better at it. So a friend of mine, Josh, was training with Jesse. I messaged him like, hey man, who are you working with? Thinking that it was just going to be, okay, here's how you build a speech, run me some speeches, let's go do a competition.
Right.
Just like in martial arts, learn your kata, go compete with your kata, good job.
Right.
But he's teaching you all the other stuff about it, which is, I'm still blown away. It was just this week, and I'm still blown away with how much work they put into actually making sure, which is great for them because they're making sure you're successful when you leave it. They're not just teaching you, oh yeah, that guy can really speak good, but that person did not go on to become a speaker because no one showed him the ropes. Whereas Jesse's taken the time to not only teach you how to speak, but to show you how to do the other part of it too, that's going to make you, when you leave there, successful. Not just, yeah, I did it and I was a good, but I never did anything with it. He wants to make sure you go forward with it.
That's neat.
And that was something that I told him with the coaching. I didn't want to do a bunch of just BS YouTube videos. I actually wanted to work with a handful of clients and help them get better. I think it'll put me in a much better headspace. I think I'll really enjoy it. I know I'll be good at it. And it'll be great. So that's why I said it was so cool, you realizing that at a young age, because I meet people all the time that they don't know what they want to do.
Right.
They don't know. They just know they hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you said, well, what part of the job do you like? Some people can't tell you that. They just really don't like their job. I've had so many friends reach out after I opened the painting company going, you know what, I would probably love to paint, but they had been at a warehouse job or something right after we got out of high school that they just couldn't leave to go to something else.
Right.
If that makes sense. They couldn't, what they were making there, I couldn't match. They would have had to take a step back until they learned the skill.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's, you talk about successful people.
Yeah.
And making those they all have a similar story. When I graduated and took a job working in the public defender's office, I was making, nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
I had a 7-year degree. My brother had a 4-year degree in computer science, and I'm looking over at him. I'm like, I may have made a
You're like,
mistake.
I made terrible.
Yeah. And because at that point I got real quick into it. I had 3 kids. And I used to go to work in the morning. I would run home at lunch because I lived close, and I would mow my landlord's lawn because he'd give me, $10 an hour off the rent. I would change clothes real quick, cut down a tree for him or something, change back, run back to court. And, people look at that and be like, you're out of your mind. But I say, no, I need this experience. I'm willing to make that sacrifice for this experience. And so I look at it and say, well, I view that as such a positive experience in my life, and part of it's because I put so much into it, that I was willing to. If you'll sacrifice for something, you're going to get more back out of it than you would have if you didn't.
Well, and so that was something. So my thing this weekend, my speech was tell, show, do process. But I talk about how. Okay. So I've been to a lot of these conferences, and they always want to teach you as a business owner, social media this, hook line this. This will get your video to go viral. You got to post these hours, blah, 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 blah. I don't need that crap in Troy. I don't need to do that. Most business owners that I talk to don't have the very basics down yet. They don't need that crap either. So a lot of stuff I went to. So what I do, what my plan is with my stuff is teaching them how to build a business the same way you got yourself known in the community, same way I did, by going out and being a part of the community events, going to places in the community that need help and helping them.
Yeah.
And so I told a story about going to the Key and painting at the Key, which bit me in the butt because then they brought the high school kids in. They messed it all up after I painted it. So then Shiloh basically called me almost in tears, and I went back up and redid the whole thing. But how that's paid off for me 100 different ways in the community. And there was a book publisher there, and that's how he does his marketing for his books. He'll come to your event, he'll set up his booth, he'll work with your clients, and then he gets to get on stage and speak, and you don't have to pay him. Okay. So he gives to get. And so we were discussing that and ended up turning into a great relationship. He's going to be up here in March. I'm meeting up with him. We have a Zoom call Thursday. But because of the way I spoke about doing it and giving to get the experience, doing the things, I taught, because of that though, he goes, I really want to connect with you. No one else at the event, he talked to them, but me and him actually went to dinner the first night. He was like, hey, I need a ride. Because Florida, everything's so spread out. He was Ubering. I had a rental car. He's like, he goes, I'll buy dinner. I was like, dude, I'll drive. Let's do it. Because he's like, this Uber fees are killing me. Super great guy. But we were discussing at how business owners sometimes forget that sometimes you got to give to get. There's tons of things that you and I have both been at in the community, trash pickups, walks, whatever it is, that's just part of being in the community and helping out where you're at. You're giving to that community, and you are going to get something off it at some point. Whether it's just the good feeling of going out and helping, you're getting something. People would be like, oh, I just did it for just to do it. No, you're getting, Joey and I have talked about this before, you're getting that feeling back of, okay, I felt good, I got to help out.
And even beyond that, you get, think about if you want to live in the kind of community where people go out and work together and where there isn't trash on the road or anything like that, you have to be the change you want to see.
Yes.
And so I live in a better community because of people like you, and because of all the other helpers, and because I help too.
Yes,
I live in a better community in part because of me.
Yes,
and so my kids live in a better community. I want my kids to be able to say, I live in a better community because of my father.
Yep.
And even if it's in the smallest ways possible, I mean, that would be the ultimate cut is.
Well, but that's how you're teaching them too.
Yeah, exactly.
By going out and doing it, you're not just sitting there saying it like I make fun of all the time on the podcast, and I never will stop. And that is the We Hate Troy page. So many people post in some of these groups negatively about town, and it's like, in the amount of time you posted, you could have gotten out of your car and just picked a piece of trash up, or you could have done X or Y or Z. There's a million other things you could have done before you put in all that effort to gripe about it all afternoon. And that's something that never appealed. I never caught that when I was younger. And as I grew in business and mentally just grew with my family, I was like, wow, that's a lot of wasted time. Just go be the change. You want to see something get better? You want to see something in town look better? Go see what you can do to make it look better. It's so simple that people forget it.
Yeah. Well, and how many people will help you?
Yeah.
If I post a picture of me doing trash, I get 4 or 5 people saying, hey, next time you're doing that, can I come too? No, you're laughing at it.
I'm laughing because they don't all show up though.
Well, it's true, but
some of them do. I get a kick out of it because David posts stuff too, and we'll put stuff up. There'll be 57 comments. Now, some people will stop and give Gatorades, and that's great. I love the fact they get a part of it. But there's a lot of people that talk about wanting to do things, and then there's others of us that will just go do it. And that's something that by us doing that, it's going to spread that.
I agree. And there's some, I mean, about it. Whenever David goes out and picks up trash and I'm not there, I'm always like, dang it. Because, schedules don't line up.
I know.
I
messaged him the other day. I was like, because the next one, he messaged it to me early. I'm like, thank you. Because I was in Florida this weekend. So a couple people from the school went, but I felt bad I couldn't go. But he sent me the next one early so I could make sure that morning I'm available because
that's one coming up on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm going to that too.
Schedules don't always align. I'm like, hey man, if you'd put this out, I said, I know you get the urge to go do it. I was like, let me know. He's like, oh no, I'm good. I said, I know, but I want to help. I get booked out. We all do.
Right.
But no, that's one thing with the Lincoln County community though, that it is different out here. People do that. People go there. There's so many things that people do that they don't post about it, or you don't hear about it. And then you'll hear whispers of this. You're like, oh, that's really cool. That's really neat. That person was doing this, or that person made this difference. And it's a team effort. Now, is Troy perfect? Lincoln County perfect? No, but by everybody working towards the goal, it's getting there.
I agree.
It really is. And there's so many people like yourself that, I've got friends other places that if I told them, oh yeah, a judge came on the podcast the other day. Oh, you know the judge in Lincoln County? Well, yeah, I know a couple of them, and I didn't even know the one was a judge. Yeah, it's just type of community is, Yeah. Mike Wood was up to school. His kid come in for like a trial, and, I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's because he's prosecutor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember being like, wow, that's cool. That was, and then there was another time I had some aldermen were in there because David was there. There's like different people in the community that like other people wouldn't expect that because there's in other communities. Oh, that's a hierarchy. Those are the fancy people, and it's not like that out here.
I agree. One of my favorite stories about that is I was picking up my kid. I can't remember. We were at the First Baptist Church. They were going to some youth activity night thing that they were doing there. And I get on this elevator, and there's this guy standing there with his kid, and his kid's probably 8 years old. And the kid goes, hey, Jacobs, because he'd seen my signs.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's amazing. Like, that's so fun that this kid will grow up and be like, oh, yeah, I knew it. He'll
tell everybody he knows you. They do it with me all the time. I know Master Matt. Yeah.
I think that's so fun to be, because so many of the elected offices are so distant. You have no idea who they are. And in Lincoln County, if you go to an event, you'll see those people there putting up chairs and just being
like everyone else,
being part of. And I think that's important.
It's very important. I know what you mean by that. My dad, when I first opened the school, I was doing classes in St. Charles County, Warren County, Lincoln County. I was teaching about 1,000 kids a week. I'd go out to daycares and preschools and do free classes to promote my business because I didn't have money to advertise. And I was at a quick trip in St. Peter's, and some kid was like, "Sup, Master Matt?" Threw me a high five as he walked through, and my dad's like, "Who's that?" I was like, "I have no clue." Absolutely, because it actually got so bad. I was teaching so many kids that I wouldn't leave the house without a school T-shirt on because I'd have kids run up and hug me at the store. Yeah, you're a parent. Moms would be like, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Whoa, I'm Master Matt, Taekwondo." Like I would not leave. My dad's like, "Do you own anything other than Taekwondo stuff?" I'm like, man, every time I wear something out that's not Taekwondo, some kid approaches me and I get a parent almost freaking out over stranger danger. I have to like bolt over to the parent and introduce myself because the kids will see you and take off for you.
Wow.
You know, when you're teaching martial arts, doing all that stuff with them, you're punching, kicking with them, they love it, and they'd run up to me at Target. And I used to get kicked out, or they'd be like sitting in the cart with mom or dad, and they'd be looking around the clothes and wave at me. And mom and dad are like, "What are you doing? Who is?" I'd run over real quick, give them my card. But that is what's so cool about the community.
Yeah.
You see everybody. Everybody lives and works, and everybody's together. I haven't lived a lot of places, but I know I grew up in O'Fallon. It was like that in O'Fallon when I was a kid in the 80s. But not. I feel like it's just not the same as it is in Troy.
I agree.
And Lincoln County in general, it's the same way. I say Troy all the time, so that's where I live.
Right. And there's people who feel, I mean, I know there are people who are going to hear this and be like, "I don't get to go be friends with a judge." But it really is, I mean, we're out there. Come out and, you know.
Oh, you're
come on, help, be part of it.
Yeah, like there's stuff I miss. I'm like, holy crap! Yeah, how do these guys make it to everything? Because I feel like some of you guys really are good at it. We try, but with the tournaments and traveling,
that's funny because I feel like you're the guy who's there at everything.
Oh no, I get that. I joke with different people. I'm like, we managed to hit them all at some point. It's a team effort, right? But it's cool. Like we missed. Did you go to Shrimp Oil?
Yes.
I missed that this time because I had my speaking competition.
Okay.
So I was like, wow, that was really odd because a couple of us, Julie Forrester and myself, both missed it. And I was like, well, that was really weird. We normally always hit that one. But I heard it was a really good turnout.
It was.
Taylor, I seen Taylor at the bank yesterday. She said
delicious.
It was great.
What you were saying about you didn't have money to advertise.
Yeah.
So you went out and got involved. It's like I was talking about, sacrificing for that first job.
Yeah.
To be part of that. It's interesting how different you would view your school if your father said, "Look, this is ridiculous. Here's $20,000, buy some billboards." How much?
Bobby and I were just talking about that. I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
Yeah,
for $1 million.
Absolutely.
Back then, I was like, man, if somebody could just give me $50,000 because I wanted 50 to start it. I opened it with 20, and I knew it wasn't enough. I literally got it open and then was flat broke. And my dad was like, "You know what? If you just show up here every day, sit here, people will come in." And I'm like, I don't think it works that way. I had no proof that it didn't work that way. I just said that sounds stupid.
Right.
And I flipped him the keys and I said, well, if you think that works, I'm going back to painting. You guys could stick this school where sun don't shine. And he's like, whoa, I'm not teaching. I was like, okay, so then I'm doing it my way. And I started coming up with ways to do things. And that's what my whole coaching thing is about, is the different ways to do things. You can do it for free.
Right.
To get out there, you just got to put the work in. And I did. I went to preschool. I went everywhere. I finally stopped the preschool thing because then I started doing stuff at the Wright City School District, the different things. And it got to, I actually stopped doing a lot of that because I went back to work painting for a little bit after the economy started bouncing back. So I opened in the first quarter of 2009. The absolutely worst economy we were in, and I got advice I should open a business. I don't regret that because the hard knocks that it taught me made me who I am today. But at the same time, it's like, man, it'd been really nice if I'd waited 2 years.
Right.
But I'd have paid 10 times more for rent, and I probably would have messed it all up because I wouldn't have had that hard knocks. Like I had rent in Winsville really cheap when I started out because they couldn't rent businesses. Okay. They were so elated. They built the whole place out. I painted it, but they did 90% of it because they needed tenants. The building was half empty.
Okay.
I don't regret that part of it, but I feel that the businesses and the people that I meet and make friends with nowadays did that type of work. Like you said, you ran home, you mowed the lawn, you did things. I tell everybody there was when we were trying to land Don Collier as a client, I had done 2 houses for him on like the opposite side of Glen Meadows. And when I got over to the other side, he's like, okay, you are the painter now. Because he gave me 2 houses to test us out. Well, then there was a house across the street that was taped, and I called him. I'm like, hey, superintendent says someone else is painting that one. Am I painting them all or what? And the orders I did it's because I just didn't want to order paint or show up at the wrong house.
Okay.
I was like, if we're sharing, that's cool. And the super said, yeah, someone else is doing that. I was like, does Don know? Because he likes to use one sub. And I knew that because I had spoken with him a couple times. So I messaged him. He goes, no, you're the only painter. He goes, that thing's got to be painted. The floor's going tomorrow. I'm like, well, it's noon. So I taught class. After class, I had 2 of my employees meet me. We had a couple Mountain Dews, and we took spotlights in, and we put the first coat on it that night at 10 o'clock at night in the dark with spotlights, sprayed the ceilings, rolled out all the walls so the floor guys could start. I did all the little stuff later, but we got it done to make that happen. There's a lot of people I meet in business that have been like, I'm going home and having my beer tonight and my dinner, and I guess, and they would have completely shot themselves in the foot. I meet people that do stuff over that in a petty way. I didn't do it, and I didn't even think about telling them no. I was like, nope, this is going to be painted tonight. And I told them to. I'm like, if you two ain't coming in, I'm doing it. It's getting painted.
Right.
It ain't going to be pretty, but it's getting done enough that they can floor it, and I'll fix everything later.
Well, it's funny you say that because, I mean, young Mike Jacobs being like, I'm going home at 5 o'clock, you know, and what I looking back on it, it wasn't so much, it was more entrepreneurial than I would have given it credit for.
Yeah.
Because the thing it was that my boss didn't have time to micromanage me. He didn't care as long as the work was done.
Yes.
And so there were nights where I was there late and the weekends that I went in, you know.
Yeah.
But it was on my schedule.
Yes.
I could put my kids to bed and then go back to work if I wanted to.
Yeah, and that was the whole reason you wanted to do
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And so I tell you, even though I have not been an entrepreneur, I did not inherit whatever gene that is, and so I admire people who have it.
Yeah, but really, you are, though. I mean, with what you do and how, when I see attorneys, there's different fields that when you see them and the way their schedules operate and everything, it is very much the same thing. It's just, I feel it falls into the same category.
Really?
It's not exactly like punching that 9 to 5. You are making decisions. You do have to be places. You do have freedom to come and go. It's not like you're on an assembly line or behind a counter at McDonald's or something where someone's watching you, even though you're doing it for this organization. They call it entrepreneurs now. That's the big term. That's the kind of the big new thing is for people that don't want to go hang their own shingle and do their own thing. Okay. You could be an entrepreneur, and that's where you get hired on somewhere and you make big changes from inside the company without that financial risk of putting up the money up front.
Okay.
It's becoming a really big thing for people where, you know, you have someone that has a really big company and they're looking to promote from within. So you become an entrepreneur. You learn, you grow, you scale, you do things that an actual employee wouldn't do.
Okay.
So I feel that that's very similar.
Okay.
At least in my experience with it and dealing with different attorneys and stuff, it is very entrepreneurial. Whether you have your own practice or not.
You know, I like that.
That's how I've always viewed it, is that was the other reason as I got older that I was like, yeah, I would have done okay with that. I probably didn't need to make straight A's. My parents were probably just using that to guilt me into doing better in school, but I just hated school. That was the other reason. I don't think I could have ever done it because I just hated school. But if I would have if I could have got through, you know, the first 2 years of college and then went to law school, however it would have worked out. I don't even know how that goes. If I could have made it through the basics and got to the part that interested me, I could have done it. Because the legal side would have interested me. That would have fired me. I would have studied the hell out of that stuff because I would have found it so interesting. But it was the basics before that I just couldn't do. I hated it. And it's something I've learned now with modern days with ebooks and YouTube and all that. There's so many different ways you can continue to learn. I'm constantly learning. It's not that I didn't like learning. I just didn't want to learn math.
Yeah. No, I totally identify with that. I mean, I picked my undergraduate degree in part on how much math were they going to make me.
Oh, I bet. Everybody's got a thing like that. There's something they don't care for.
Yeah. In England, law is the undergraduate degree.
Really?
Yeah. You go straight in. And then if you want to be a courtroom lawyer, basically is how you'd say it, then you go on for the extra for a master's degree.
Wow, their courts are so much different than ours too.
Yeah,
I watched some video. I watched this YouTube channel, VimWiki, and it was like a ticket thing, but the guy was in the UK and there's a camera or something. I don't remember the whole story, but they showed part of the process, him going through court, and I was like, they still wear the wigs?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's wild. I was like, the whole story was boring, but I was like, wow, their courts are way different. I was like, there's a lot of people that sit here and go, I don't love the U.S. Yeah, Google the courts across the ocean. Let's see how much you don't like our fair system over here, because that looked pretty shady.
Well, that's England. I mean,
it was wild.
Look at weirder places too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know. I guess anybody that lives in a country is going to assume things are like their country. But that was wild when they showed some video footage of it. I was like, oh, that's really different than ours. Note not to get in trouble outside the U.S.
Yeah, can you imagine? Because, I mean, it's got to be the worst day of your life to have somebody sentence you to prison.
Oh.
Can you imagine having to be somebody in a wig that you can't take serious? You'd be like, this is both.
Oh, and they're elevated way up, the old style. Yeah. That was the part I was like, wow. That was what was funny. So we were in Cardiff, Wales, for our tournament year before last for Team USA.
Yeah.
All the kids had stickers. Everybody was trading USA stuff and all this thing. And these kids come up. I was at the desk getting our WKU stuff signed off on, and the English girls were working. And kids were like, hey, do you want some of these? And they were all 4th of July stickers. And they're like trying to give them to them. And I'm like, they don't want those. And they're like, the girls were looking at me, and these people standing there like, what do you mean? I'm like, they lost. They don't want them. I'm like, right, you guys lost. You don't want them. You're a little sour. We're still a little sour. It's all good. We still talk about tea. And we were all getting a kick out of it because the kids they did not realize we were in England, and they were just young enough that it didn't register.
Right.
And it really didn't register till they were passing it across, and I started cracking up. I was like, yeah, I don't think they want 4th of July. They like American stuff. They don't want 4th of July stuff.
Yeah.
They're not interested in that.
Give them some Oreos.
Yeah. I was just dying laughing because the girls were like, they kind of shunned it, and I was like, you guys are still hurting on that one, ain't you? Yeah, back to back. We won that stuff. I just had to giggle because it was my brain didn't process it either, because everybody spoke English.
Sure,
it wasn't that much of a foreign country. Like when we went to Canada this year, it was like being in Clayton. We were in Calgary, and it was such a nice area. It was very hard until you went to buy something and you're like, oh, that's not American. Okay.
Right.
Like to remember, I mean, even where did we go? We went to a place, it was the Canadian version of Denny's. It was too funny. It was like Rodney's or something. It was very similar. It was a hoot. Because at first when we pulled up, we were like, oh, this looks good. Steve Mosier and his daughter's Kendall. We went and we started looking at the menu, and I'm like, this is very Denny's-ish. And so that was our like running joke the whole week. So food was Denny's is better. But that was like our running joke all weekend. It was a kick out of it. But people forget it's such a different culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, the court thing was wild. That was so wild compared to the American courts.
Yeah.
So you've been through that. Now you're a judge. So how's that work? 4 years and then back to private practice, or
4 years and then either reelected or on to the next thing.
Or you can go back, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that every 4 years you run for. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's neat, because that was just, so you're on your first year?
Just finished my first year.
Just finished, right?
Yep. Yeah. Starting on the second.
That's really cool. Well, I hope it continues to work out for you.
I
appreciate you coming on. This was great. I always love chatting with you. I still remember the first Troy Running Club walk we did with David. That was when I first met you. That's been years ago.
Yeah, I had no business trying to run or follow.
Casey went with them one day, and him and St. Pierre and him did like 12 miles or something ridiculous, something astronomical. She's like, I'm never going again. I wouldn't have ran. I'd have told David, like, you can shoot me, but
I can help him with trash because there's always trash, like no matter where you go. But if anytime he's like, hey, we should get from point A to point B quickly, I don't have any business being there.
I'm not a runner.
Yeah.
I'll do the 5Ks to support the kids. I always like hang back with one of the slower kids, and that's my excuse. Because I was teasing Emily, one of my black belts. I'm like, why you always got to be last? I was like, I don't mind, because we did the Memorial Day Murph workout at Freedom, and I hung back, and then I stopped to do something. She took off really fast. I was like, you little turd, because she beat me. I was like, see how it is? She's like, well, I wasn't gonna lose. I'm like, I was a mile ahead of you, and I stopped to help you. I was like, that's cool. I was like, you learned how to play dirty from me, so I get it. I couldn't get mad at her because I would have totally like tripped her and done the same thing. They get it honestly. But man, it was great having you on. I appreciate it. And that's the time we got today. So thank you guys for checking out the podcast. We look forward to continue to bring everybody in Lincoln County on, and have a great day.